it can definitely be tough navigating the landscape of mining hardware. So instead of you sitting here comparing profitability of specific GPUs, CPUs or ASICs, I thought I'd teach you some of the core principles that apply no matter what type of mining hardware you are looking into. And my hopes is that this video will help you guys better understand the underlying concepts that always come into play when talking about mining hardware, and that you can then use that knowledge to your advantage when buying new stuff and growing your farms. So we're gonna break down some concepts like versatile versus specialized hardware, value for money versus power efficiency, quick profit versus future-proof miners, and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm going to lay them out in a way that makes them easy to understand, even for people who might be new to mining. And I'm also going to bring up examples of all of this along the way so that it makes better sense in context. All right, so all of that is what's coming up after a quick word from our sponsor. Coin Mining Central are currently doing a massive giveaway for the month of September where you can win loads of different ASIC miners as well as various coin prices and more. And if you guys can get them up to 12,000 followers on Twitter, they've promised to add, in their own words, a sensational bonus to the giveaway as well. And luckily for us, following them on Twitter is one of the ways to enter into the giveaway. You can find the rest of the info about the giveaway through the link in the video description. And if you're not familiar with Coin Mining Central, they're an online store for ASIC miners that has been around for over 5 years at this point. And since they're based out of England, Europe, where we have very strict rules and regulations on stuff like customer support and personal detail protection, I've always felt fully comfortable recommending them to you guys. On top of that, Coin Mining Central always offer free worldwide express shipping, and they've also provided me with loads of exclusive discount codes for you guys. And by the way, for those of you who might be curious, the Jas-Miner X16Q, Bitmain X5 and Ice River KS0 are the miners that I'm personally most interested in currently. So go check out Coin Mining Central. I've put all of those discount codes and the exclusive link down in the video description, and of course, don't forget to enter into the giveaway. So all of the hardware I'm going to be using as examples in this video will be linked down in the video description, and for transparency, those will be affiliate links, meaning the channel does get a small commission at no extra cost to you. But, well, as a matter of fact, for most of these I actually have a discount code for you that I'll also put down there, so, you know, kind of a win-win. You get to save a bit of money and I can afford to keep making videos like this one. But now let's jump right into things with the main overlying concept, and that is going to be choosing between versatile and specialized mining hardware. Versatile hardware would be hardware that can mine multiple different coins and algorithms, so usually stuff like GPUs or CPUs. And on the flip side of that, you have specialized hardware, which is hardware that is purpose-built to mine one single coin or algorithm. This is most commonly going to be ASIC miners, but can also be stuff like hotspot miners or hard drive miners. Now, the advantage of versatile mining hardware is pretty obvious. It's versatile. It can mine many different coins and algorithms. This of course means you are protected if one coin crashes in price. You can just switch to mine a different coin. Versatile mining hardware can be a bit of a double-edged sword though, as it does allow you to constantly switch between which coin you are mining, meaning every day you can make sure you are maximizing your mining earnings. But that also means you then have to actively check and reconfigure your mining hardware to make sure you are actually mining the most profitable coin, which can of course be time consuming. But another pro of versatile mining hardware though is that it usually is just regular consumer PC components, which means it's not only used for mining. The advantage of that is of course that it can hold its resale value better, as even if for some reason it's no longer viable to use for mining, it can still be used for other things. A good example would be selling old GPUs that are no longer profitable for mining to people buying low-end gaming PCs and stuff like that. Now let's contrast that with specialized mining hardware, stuff like ASICs that are purpose-built to only mine a single coin or algorithm. The main advantage of these devices is going to be their mining efficiency and just overall mining performance, aka their hash rate. A good example of this is on the coin 𝗘𝗓, where one of the best GPUs to mine this coin with, the NVIDIA RTX 4090, gets about 2.4 gigahash of hash rate while using 250 watts of power. An ASIC miner for this coin though, the Ice River KS0, gets 100 gigahash of hash rate at only 65 watts of power. Now, there are of course layers to this, as there are actually many coins that use mining algorithms that are specifically designed to not work on specialized hardware like ASIC miners. But for the coins where specialized mining hardware is produced, the main purpose of those specialized miners is to be much more powerful in terms of their mining performance and much more efficient when it comes to their power consumption. The secondary advantage of specialized hardware that people rarely talk about, however, is the ease of use. These types of miners are very much set it and forget it, where you can just set it up once and then just watch the coins flow into your wallet for the next weeks, months, and even years. There's no constantly having to switch coins, no rebooting them because they crashed, no tweaking overclock settings or anything like that. The downside of these miners are of course though that they are locked into a single coin or algorithm, meaning that if that coin crashes in price or changes its algorithm, well, then the miner can very quickly become completely useless. And I'm going to talk more about the factors that play into those scenarios a bit later in the video, but first, let's look at what factors could affect your decision when purchasing more versatile mining hardware like GPUs or CPUs. And the main factor here is going to be if you want to prioritize total hash rate or if you want to prioritize power efficiency. In other words, do you want to get as much hash rate as possible, or do you want mining hardware that uses as little power as possible? And why you need to make this judgment call here is simply because of price. You see, you can get a lot of hash rate for very cheap by, for example, buying very old graphics cards like the AMD RX 580s. But the problem is that those cards are going to be using an insane amount of power. On the flip side of that, you could instead go for very power efficient GPUs like the NVIDIA RTX 4090 that I talked about a bit earlier. A GPU like that can get probably more than 10 times the amount of hash rate than a RX 580, while only pulling maybe 3 times the amount of power. Only problem here is that those GPUs are a lot more expensive, which is why we need to sort of balance out this decision. And the way I like to do this is I like to break mining hardware down in 2 ways. The first one being hash rate per dollar and the other one being hash rate per watt. So let's do this for the 2 GPUs I already brought up, and let's then also look at some different scenarios for when you might want to prioritize one over the other. So let's stick to using Caspa mining for our example here. We have the RX 580, which you can get for around $50 on eBay right now. It does around 200 megahash mining Caspa at 87 watts. We then of course have the 4090, which costs at least $1,500 and does about 2400 megahash mining Caspa at 250 watts. By just dividing the hash rate by the cost of the GPU, we can see that the RX 580 is significantly cheaper per hash rate, coming in at 4 megahash per dollar, while the 4090 on the other hand only gets about 1.6 megahash per dollar. This of course means that for the same amount of money you'd get almost 3 times as much hash rate buying 580s over 4090s. But doing the same thing for efficiency, dividing the hash rate by the power consumption, we can see that the 4090 is significantly more power efficient at almost 10 megahash per watt, as opposed to the 580 that only gets 2.3 megahash per watt. So when should you choose better hash rate per dollar and when should you choose better hash rate per watt? Well, it all comes down to how profitable mining is in comparison to your power price. For example, if you have very cheap or close to free power, then you might as well go for the GPUs that give you the most hash rate per dollar spent, as the amount of power they pull barely matters to you with your extremely cheap power price. In that scenario, you might as well prioritize getting as much hash rate as possible for your money, as more hash rate means more mined coins. This is also true during times when mining is extremely profitable, like what we saw during 2021 to 2022, when a regular graphics card could generate over $10 of income per day. And during a time like that, it doesn't really matter if a GPU uses 4 times as much power to get the same hash rate as a more efficient card, as that would maybe only be the difference of paying $1 in power every day instead of 25 cents in power every day. The profit you're taking home every day is so large in relation to the power cost that efficiency doesn't really matter during those times. So prioritizing getting more hash rate for your dollar means you'll make more money. However, during times like right now, where mining profitability is low and overall power prices are really high, this is when power efficiency becomes more important. For example, if a GPU only mines $1 worth of coin every day, all of a sudden that GPU only pulling 25 cents worth of power every day instead of $1 worth of power every day makes a massive difference. And if you're wondering why anyone would even bother mining at all if all you're making are a few cents per day, I've actually got a video talking about that I'll link down in the video description. Now, as you can probably tell, the big challenge here has to do with timing. While prioritizing getting as much hash rate as possible while disregarding power efficiency is the best decision during times of high profitability, the crypto market can very quickly crash down, and then you are stuck with a bunch of unprofitable hardware that you're going to have to turn off. But on the other hand, if you focus on paying extra to get really efficient mining hardware during times of low profitability, that decision might come back to haunt you as well if profitability suddenly skyrockets again and you know you could have gotten a lot more hash rate for your money if you would have prioritized less efficient hardware. So there isn't really a right or wrong decision here. If you've got cheap power, you might prioritize hash rate over efficiency. If you want to give your farm the best odds at staying profitable even during low times, you might want to prioritize efficiency over hash rate. And there are actually also some people that try to game this whole situation by buying up a bunch of very inefficient hardware for super cheap prices during the times of low profitability with the intention of raking it in profit-wise when, profitability goes back up again. But now let's shift our focus to specialized mining hardware and the three different avenues you can go down here. So as we already mentioned, specialized mining hardware is very limited when it comes to what it can mine. Often it's just a single algorithm or even a single coin. And this is where we have three options to choose from. Do we A, want to buy a miner that is extremely profitable right now? Or B, buy a miner that might not be as profitable right now but has a much better chance at staying profitable for a very long time? Or C, buy a miner that might barely be profitable now, but where the coin it mines has the potential to increase dramatically in value in the future. These three categories of miners usually come at three different price points too, where the extremely profitable miners are usually very expensive, the future-proof miners are middle of the road, and the barely profitable miners can usually be had for relatively cheap. The three examples here would be the Bitmain KS3 as the super profitable miner, the gas miner X16P as the future-proof miner, and the Bitmain KA3 as the cheap miner. So let's break down the pros and cons for each of these three types of miners. Starting with the Bitmain KS3, which again is a Kaspa miner. This thing currently brings in over $200 worth of profit every single day, but it also costs over $20,000 to buy. Oh, and of course there is also sort of a mini version of this miner, which is the iServer KS0, that still makes almost $3 per day and only costs about $900 to buy. Now, pretty much every time a super profitable miner like this pops up, there is one big downside to it. And that's of course besides the obvious one, which is the price. But this big downside that I'm referring to is that this crazy high profitability doesn't last. As a matter of fact, when the KS3 was first announced, it would have been making over $3,000 per day, and that has already plummeted down to just $200 per day. And the reason for why this happens is simply because mining always finds a sort of status quo. In simple terms, if a miner is extremely profitable, a lot of people will buy that miner, and when those people then receive and start using their miner, the profitability goes down because there are now more miners on that network that have to share in the mining profits. However, this relationship is logarithmic, meaning that the more people come online, the slower the profit reduction gets. For example, if only one person mines a coin, it only takes one person to cut profits in half. But if 1,000 people mine a coin, it will of course take another 1,000 people to cut the profits in half. And because of this, what usually happens is that a sort of natural balance is found where profitability is decent and people are only buying miners at a rate that no longer affects profitability very much. What also always tends to happen is that as profitability goes down, so does the price of the miner, which means that the challenge here is again timing. Do you buy the miner super early on when it's crazy profitable and hope that this crazy profitability holds long enough for you to break even and start making a profit on your miner? Or do you hold off and wait for the profitability and therefore the price of the miner to come down? Well, basically it's up to you and both what you can afford and what your personal analysis of how fast the profitability drop will happen. The gamble here is, of course, that if profitability holds steady for a while, this thing would pay itself back in just over 3 months, which is super quick in these contexts. And then after that, you might even have another few months of insane daily profits until profitability finally lowers down. But of course, there's also the risk that you buy the miner and before you even get it, the profit is down by like 90%. These types of miners usually appeal to people who want to make a lot of profit fast and aren't in mining with the mindset of building up big stacks of coins to sell later after a potential price increase. Moving on to the second category, which is future-proof miners. And the main selling point here is that while they might only be somewhat profitable right now, they are very likely to stay profitable for a very long time. So that is in stark contrast to the previous type of miner we spoke about, which is pretty much guaranteed to have a significant drop in profitability very quickly. So the example of a future-proof miner I brought up was the 𝗧-𝗦𝗛𝗏 X16P, which is an ET/ETC hash miner, which currently does bring in about $13 per day in profit of the power at the price of about $8,000. You also have the smaller version of this miner, which is basically just the exact same miner, just a third as powerful, which brings home almost $5 in profit per day and costs just under $3,000. And that is the 𝗧-𝗦𝗛 X16Q, by the way, and that's actually one of my favorite miners currently. It's silent, you can run it at home on 120 volt power, and it's very future-proof, which is what we'll, talk about now. As I already mentioned, a miner being future-proof means it's very likely to stay profitable for a very long time. And there are 3 main factors that play into this. The first one is that in many cases, even though a specialized miner can only mine one specific algorithm, that algorithm is used by many different coins. This means that even if one coin crashes in price or changes mining algorithm or anything else that makes mining it unviable, there are still plenty of other options of coins to mine, which is definitely true in the example with the X16P and X16Q, as the ET/ETC hash algorithm is one of the most commonly used algorithms out there, used by over 30 different coins as of today. The second factor playing into if a miner is future-proof is the sheer size of the network for the coins it can mine. Remember my previous example of how if only one person mines a coin, it only takes one person to cut profits in half, but if 1,000 people mines that coin, it takes another 1,000 people to cut profits in half. And again, that is definitely the case for these miners. Not only due to the sheer amount of coin projects that use the algorithm these miners can mine, that of course all add up to a lot of total network hash rate, but also due to the fact that some of the biggest mineable coins out there use the ET/ETC hash algorithm. And finally, the third factor that plays into how future-proof a miner is actually again the mining efficiency of the miner. Remember that from earlier in the video? Turns out it matters here too. And the reason for this is all about the relation between the total income and the cost of running a miner. For example, if you have a miner that makes $10 per day but costs $9 to run because it isn't very power efficient, then it only takes a 10% reduction in profitability for that particular miner to be unprofitable. While on the other hand, if you have a miner that makes $10 per day but only costs $5 per day to run because it's a lot more power efficient, meaning it gets the same hash rate while using less power, then there would of course need to be a 50% reduction in profitability for that miner to become unprofitable. And here we see exactly this for the X16P and X16Q, where for example the X16Q makes over $6 per day in total income and the power to run it is only about $1.50 at 10 cents per kilowatt hour. That means that theoretically the profitability would need to drop by a whopping 75% across the board on all the coins that this thing can mine before it were to become unprofitable. This type of miner is usually the most appealing to people who want to make a single purchase and then use that miner to slowly build up a massive bag of crypto over many months or even years. And this is also the kind of category of people that I tend to fall into, which I guess also explains why the X16Q is one of my favorite miners right now. Finally, let's have a look at the last category of specialized miner, which is the kind that is both usually the cheapest, but also can have the highest likelihood of making you an insane amount of money. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. 𝗏𝗏 is a crypto and NFT tax software built to save you time and help maximize your tax refund. Thankfully, 𝗏𝗏 has made the process of doing this super easy. All you have to do is sign up for an account and link your crypto wallets. That's it. What 𝗏𝗏 then does is it looks at the transaction data of those wallets and uses that to automatically generate a tax report for you in your country's local currency. You can then take this report and export it into any tax filing software like TurboTax or TaxAct, or you can send it off directly to an accountant. Best part is that if you use my link in the description below, you can sign up and use 𝗏𝗏 entirely for free. And once you're happy with the reports and are ready to export, you can save 10% by using my discount code 𝗬𝗏. So make sure you click on that link in the video description below for more details. And so this last type of miner is the one for those who might like a bit of gambling. And the example I'm going to use here is the Bitmain 𝗘-𝗚3, which is a Kadena miner. It currently makes about maybe like $1 to $2 per day in profit off the power and costs less than $3,000 to buy. So you might be asking, well, what's the big deal? It's about the same price as the X16Q, just less profitable. Well, that big deal is that while it only makes about, let's call it 2 days of profit off the power right now, it does mine about 22 Kadena coins per day. And when we look back at the fact that Kadena's all-time high coin price was about $24 per coin, you might start seeing where the appeal for this miner comes in to some people. Because there are many people in this space that believe that most coins always will see their all-time high price again in the next potential crypto bull market. And if that were to be the case, and you can hold all of the Kadena this thing mines until the point that you can sell it all for $24 per coin again, well, then it's as if you were mining well over $500 per day with this thing. Or in other words, you broke even in less than a week, and after that point you made about $15,000 per month from this thing. However, this of course comes with one big caveat, and I'm not even referring to the fact that the coin price might not go back up again. No. What the issue is that miners like this are pretty much always for very small coins, from the simple fact that smaller coins are the ones that do have the potential to increase dramatically in value. You know, a big coin like, for example, Bitcoin can't exactly increase 100 times in value, or the market cap of Bitcoin would be more than there is total money in the whole world. But a smaller coin like Kadena could easily do 100x in price without issue. Problem is that since these are small coins, that means it doesn't take very much for this 𝗘-𝗚3 miner to become unprofitable. Kind of the opposite of the future-proof miners we spoke about earlier. And of course, if a miner becomes unprofitable, that means the money you spend for the power to run the miner would buy you more coin than the miner actually mines. Meaning you might as well just turn the miner off and just buy the coin instead. And of course, in that scenario, buying the miner was a waste of money since you just have to turn it off anyway. But on the other hand, that's not certain to happen. It could stay profitable all the way up to a massive coin price increase too. And that is a chance that the people buying miners like this are willing to take. They either believe very strongly in the coin project that the miner is designed for, or they like to, you know, gamble a little bit. And I personally can definitely see the appeal here to some extent. You miss every shot you don't take, as the saying goes. And to be fair, this kind of is the bet to take if you want a chance of getting stupid rich from mining.